Okay, let's talk about dimensioning some. Um, you've noticed when you're placing objects, you get what Revit calls a listening dimension that just shows you the distance from your object to, nearby walls or windows or whatever. And then once you place the object, that becomes what's known as a temporary dimension. So if I click on this wall here, this gives me my temporary dimensions across the bottom. And I've kind of alluded to these in a previous video about, you can click on it to change the value and move your wall. You can adjust the, the witness line, because by default it's center of walls. Okay, and so a door. If I click on a door, there's my temporary dimensions for it. And these are covered right here in the Manage tab, Additional Settings, where to go? I'm not seeing it. Annotations. They moved it from the video that I watched. Okay, so temporary dimensions here. Now, these are saved within your template. So if you make a change to a drawing, it won't affect your template going forward. You'd have to edit your template. The only thing I could see about making some of these changes is if you were doing a total masonry building. So the total building is either concrete or CMUs. In which case, now wall dimensions become faces, and doors and window dimensions become the openings. So I really can't see making a change to the temporary dimension properties. But just so you know, that's where they are. Okay, and so if let's just say I like a dimension, a temporary dimension, I can convert that over to a permanent dimension. I'll say you can. I know you can. I just haven't had a little difficulty figuring it out. Oh, I didn't mean to move that. Anyway, I don't like using temporary dimensions for my permanent dimensions because you end up with not having a lot of control over where they go. Okay, but you can do that. I would rather place my dimensions, while I'm thinking about placing the dimensions, as opposed to trying to use the temporary ones and converting them. Okay, so let's place a few dimensions. So here, if we go now, you got a quick dimension right here. This is just your align dimension. So if we go to our annotate tab, you've got aligned, which is just that. It's aligned to everything there. And that's the one you're going to use, 90% of the time. Linear, it would be, in a case, well, if I move it, you can't see it, huh? Where you have an angled walls, like in the example there. Okay, come on. Where you've got those angled walls. And you just want a horizontal or a vertical dimension for them. That's where the linear dimension comes in. Angular is the angle between 3 points. Okay, if you click, and of course you understand these. A spot elevation is just that. It's an elevation at a particular spot. And that's above your 0 level. Okay. And spot coordinate is a north, south, east, west coordinate, okay, from the project base point. And let's see, is it visible here? Nope. And the templates that we're using, those base points are turned off. Okay, but if we go to the site plan, let's see. There we go. These are the project base points and the survey base point. So as far as a project goes, that's our origin. That's our 0, point. Okay, and so everything else is based on that. And so if I were to go spot coordinate, corner of the house, okay, and so that tells me from the project base point, it's 15 feet, 8 9/32 inch up, and then -3 feet in each direction. Because everything, when it comes to surveying, if you've done any mapping or GPS type work, everything is a northing and an easting, okay, as far as coordinates go. So that's why it does that. Okay. And spot slope is just that. It will give you a slope based on wherever you click, okay? It's usually done in an elevation or a section view. It might work on the site plan once you've got topography. I can't remember that, but if you remember back in setting up our project units, we changed our slope measurement to be, rise over run to 12. So those are our different dimensioning things. And we got the little pull down here. And so lots of options there where we can make changes to those. But most of the time, you're not going to make a change to anything. Okay, so let's do an equals dimension across here. So I'm going to, when you go to place a dimension, you got the option up here. Wall center line, wall faces, center of core, face of core. Okay, and I haven't talked about core, but remember a previous video where we made a wall. We duplicated a wall and changed the materials. The core is the center of that wall, of whatever we've determined was the structural part of that wall. That's the core. And not always, but most of the time it would be the stud, okay, the width of the stud, or it would be the width of the CMU block. It's not always just that, but that's usually what it is. And so that when we talk about center of core, it would be the center of that 3.5 inches, whatever we've got. If we say center of wall, it would be the center between the outside faces of the wall. And I don't have those brick walls over there anymore. But let's say, for example, we had 2 layers of gypboard on one side for fireproofing. That would mean the center of the wall is not the same as the center of the core. Okay. Or if we had brick veneer on the outside of our CMUs here, the brick veneer would not be part of the core, it would be a finish. So center of wall is not the same as center of core. Always. Okay. Wall faces and then face of core. That's pretty self-explanatory. So I'm going to change, let's see, because I'm dealing with a CMU wall here, I'm going to change to wall faces. And I'm going to go from the outside of this wall down to the edge of this wall opening. And I'm going to pull it out here and place it. Okay, so now while I'm here, I can change that. And if you're dealing with CMUs, those things are modular in 8-inch increments. So everything opening in it, or corners and things, should be modular to 8 inches. It doesn't always work out that way, but that is good planning. And we're not dealing with other than sometimes in this course we'll have a little bit, but none of our projects involve CMU walls. Well, I'll take that back. The 1133 project does, but that's a year away, so you're okay. And so now if this window needs to be moved, I can just select the window, and I may have to zoom in. So I remember Okay, so this is my temporary dimension in the blue with the highlight that goes to the center. That's my permanent dimension. And I want to make that feet 8 inches. Okay, so I'm going to make it modular. And really in CMU planning, the windows and the doors will be modular also, okay? But I'm not going to go down that route. Okay, so I've placed that. Usually when you're dimensioning through a whole series like that, it's best if you go ahead and dimension everything in that chain. So we'll go align. And I'll just go ahead and hit all of these. And then pull it out and place it. Okay, and so there it is. And so now I can, if I wanted to, I could edit these, get these windows lined up where I want them. One thing you'll see, okay, so let's go to this window here. And I want to move it here. I'm just going to make it 6 feet. Where did those come in at? I clicked something. Okay, and so now I've got those lined up. And if everything's in the right place where I want it, I'm going to come in and lock these dimensions. Okay, now, of course, that 2'6" is not going to change because the window's not going to change. But I would come in and lock these dimensions. Okay, so I didn't lock all of them just because I want to show you something. So if I take this window and I want to move it, notice none of my dimensions highlighted that I can use to move it with. But this one they still do because those are not locked. Okay, and I can move this window, but it doesn't like it because that 6 foot dimension just above it there is locked. If I were to unlock that one, now I can move this window as you know, as I want to. Okay. One of the other things is an equals dimension. And so if I go, I'm going to go ahead and go center of that door. Oh, it's already because I snapped it to the midpoint. Okay, let's see. Let's take the 4 windows across the back. Okay, and so there's my dimensions. You got some weird numbers. So if I were to turn on equal, then it moves everything so that the distances between them are all equal. Okay, and this can be good for your planning. If you're not really sure what they need to be, and so here's some changes over here in the properties. Instead of the display, if you change it to value, it will show you the actual distances. Okay, and now I could come through and lock these. And one of the nice things about this, I say nice, is if for some reason I move this wall out, make it larger, then it will adjust that equal spacing still, as long as these dimensions are not locked. So let's see, can I do that? Yeah. So if I move this wall to the right, you see it moved all those windows, but it kept them equally spaced. Okay. So there's one nice thing about that, about the equals. And then if you can always turn that off. Okay. Click on it and you get the strike through back through it. And your dimension values will stay, but they're no longer, forced to be equal. Okay. So now, if we want to dimension everything in a wall segment, this gets a little complicated. I'm looking at my notes. Okay. And so if I were to come in here, I'm trying to think of a good way to do that. Okay. Instead of wall faces, let's go wall center lines. And instead of individual reference, I want to go entire wall. Okay, and now here comes some options. And I want to pick intersecting walls. And then if I pick this wall right here and pull that down, it created a chain of dimensions across there, and it picked all of the intersecting walls. The problem being here, it still went to the center of this wall, but that's no problem because I can just drag instead of making a little change up there. Okay, and so then I can adjust it. So that's one way of doing that. Another one we'll do on the front wall here. Entire wall, instead of intersecting walls, we'll use openings. In this case, we'll use widths. Since we've got a masonry building. If we had a wood frame building, we would go with centers. And then I just pick this wall. Okay. And of course, I had that set to wall faces up here because I'm not trying to deal with that wall there. Okay. And so that was one way to get those things done. Now, if you've got dimensions that I'm not going to worry about editing these, but if you got them where they override each other, lay on top of each other, if you just click the little blue button below the text, you can pull it down with a leader. Okay. And you may have to do this sometimes to kind of clear things up. Okay. And one of the things that you're going to find is, and we're going to cover dimensioning a lot in the 1129 project, in that you don't want your dimensions, like we need a dimension for this wall, but if we pulled it out here, it's going to intersect with this one. So we could break this dimension and add another witness line to it. So we select it and we go edit witness line. And then we click where we want and then you move out to the outside where there's nothing and then click again. And so it added another extension line for us and broke that dimension in two. If for some reason you've got a dimension in and you don't want it, you can just grab one dot and pull it over to the next extension line over, and it will delete one of those dimensions for you. Okay, let's see. That covers a lot of stuff there. One of the things I want to talk about alignments and constraints. Okay, so once you get things in your project, I said before, when I start a project, I do my exterior walls, get them correct, dimension them, and then lock those dimensions. Then I do my interior walls, get them correct, lock those dimensions. Then I do like doors and windows. Okay, and when things are correct, then I'll come through and lock all of those dimensions. And that just prevents things from moving. Yes, it can get it can get a little confusing when you're trying to fix things, but you know, it's either that or you run the risk of your project suffering an earthquake, if you will. Okay, one of the tools that I want to talk about is the align tool, and you're going to use it a lot. And so I want this wall to actually align with this wall, and so I can select one, or I can just go modify, and here's the align tool. Okay, so I got the align tool, and you can pick faces, you can pick centers, you know, it doesn't really matter. So we're going to go with the face there, and in the face of this. Whoa, okay. So I got a problem with my room. So I just deleted that room. Okay, and so that aligned that up. But if we hadn't have had that problem, let me, okay. So I delete those rooms out. That'll clear us up. So let's go back and align again. And I choose those, and now it gives me the option to lock it. And so if I lock that constraint, now those walls are constrained together and they won't move. And so if I were to come up here and change this, oh, that's to the windows, that won't work. Okay, so here's what I want to change. And so I'm going to pick that wall and change this dimension to 8 feet. Okay, and so it moved. That was an error because it puts it right in front of a window. So that's an error that I've got there. Plus it adjusted the size of the rooms. Okay, oh, it put it in a door too, because the door was there. Lots of things. So, okay, so I just, main thing I wanted to show you is how to use the dimension tools and some of your options and ways to do that. When we get more into projects, you're going to get a lot more instruction on actually using dimensions and locking those things down and how to place them correctly so that they look on a drawing correctly. All right, I hope you have a good week. You've got a project that you're going to work on in Revit and turn in. So good luck with that. If you've got questions, you know, come by the lab and see me or the tutors, or send me an email.